My name is Quentin Rukingama. I'm from Burundi. I run a company called JBQ Africa, which is an agribusiness consulting firm and implementation firm committed to building and revamping agribusiness value chains on the continent. We support different players from public sector like Angelo, from private sector like Angelo, public sector like different governments and civil society in designing and building those value chains. So that's about me and JBQ Africa. I'll give the floor to Angelo to present himself and his company, and then we can jump into the Q&A session. Over to you.
Hi, Quentin. It's a big pleasure to have you on the session today. My name is Angelo Pascal Tubibu, Chairman and CEO of CONGOFRESH Group Limited. It's a Congolese company working worldwide actually. We are working with smallholders, farmers, grouping them in agricultural cooperatives in order to improve their capacity and their quality production. This is what I can say about what I have today.
Fantastic. So your voice seems to be low. I don't know if there's any way to increase that. So there's Bill, who was actually planning to be part of this session. Unfortunately, he got caught up into his job. So we keep crossing our fingers and hopefully he'll be able to join. If not, we'll probably be in a position to share with the attendees his presentation. So thank you very much, Angelo, for your presentation. So this session of ours, it's all about opportunities for value addition in agri-processing for crops with international demand. We are talking about processed cocoa, grapes, sugar, tomatoes, for instance. I would suggest probably during this session to have a value chain approach, where I'll be asking a few questions to you in terms of what kind of opportunities do we foresee in those different value chains. I don't know which one you're comfortable with among cocoa, grapes, sugar, and tomatoes. And then cocoa.
Let's talk about cocoa. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So there are a few elements we usually do consider when it comes to value chain assessment. The first one is related to the market linkage. What are the opportunities there? So that would be related to my first question. Then the second one is related to actors' effectiveness. So how structured the market is. That will be in line with my second question. And my third question will be related to the smallholder farmers' impacts expected in such kind of a value chain, because they do constitute 80% of the food production on the continent. And if we have time, we can touch to the last point related to regulation and standing in areas or countries you're operating in. So those are the 4 points I'll be glad to touch during this session. So let me start with the first one related to the market linkage. So do you see or foresee from where you are that there are enough market linkages when it comes to cocoa? Basically from the biggest processors of cocoa worldwide in need of cocoa to transform into cocoa butter, powder, and liquor. Do you foresee that the demand is good enough? And how do we connect basically those big off-takers with suppliers like the company you're running? Over to you. In terms of market value chain approach, so I was asking in terms of market linkage, how do you foresee the connection between the companies in need of cocoa and the suppliers like your company? So is it easy to contract them, to have access to markets and so on and so forth? So the market linkage basically between companies processing the cocoa and companies supplying the raw cocoa. Over to you.
That's a very big and a very good question. You know why? Because there is many small farmers who are producing cocoa. But before putting this question on the table, the question of linkage of producer and consumers, is that right? We should have before, a good base, a strong basis in terms of producers, to group those small producers in a specific area, in agricultural cooperative, in a group, in an institution, which will constitute a company. And then from this company, we can easily find all what we can need as quantity and as quality for cocoa. Also, after having this base of production of raw material, we have to create platforms, online platforms, which are the best actually, in order to link producers and consumers, or raw material producers and transforming companies. So the best way and the easy way, and what makes it easy, is the online platform that are being using in Africa actually. There is many online platforms that companies are using, and my company is doing the same thing, linking small producers and consumers. This is the only way we can make it easy.
Okay, based on that question in terms of market linkage, so do you have kind of contracts? First of all, are you in the business of trading cocoa?
Yes, I'm in a business of cocoa in West Africa and Central Africa. In West Africa, I'm working with Ivory Coast for the farmers, and in Central Africa, I'm working with small farmers in Ituri, actually.
So based on those market linkages, are you in a position to have contracts from specific players in need of cocoa? We've heard about the biggest players in that space, and they usually are eager to have a sustainable supply chain. So in that context, are you in a position, if basically you're telling us you're in that field, to get contracts from those players, which can now provide to you and your company more visibility in terms of your pipeline of trade? Over to you.
That's fine. And because this is a very big problem that we have actually as business, is this visibility that we don't have. We have eventually contract with farmers, with smallholder farmers, which are our suppliers for raw materials, but we don't have this what we ask for. This contract is like catalysts who can make things easy worldwide. We can make things easy worldwide by making our company known and our business known too. This is a very, very big problem. We don't have this.
So you feel that you don't have, your company is not in a position to have contracts with companies processing cocoa like Barry, Kalebo, Cargill, Olam, Mendelez. So companies like yours are suffering from that perspective?
Yes. And the reason for that, it's because we are new on the market, and those big processors were already implemented in this market, in this sector, and they have their own way of getting raw materials. And in order to change this situation, we need to create a task force, a big strength, by creating a huge network of smallholder farmers, which can now create something like we can force processors to accept to take also product from smallholder farmers, but we can't force them, and we can't put ourselves in the market without having this unity. That's why we are fighting for creating one network with agricultural cooperatives, which can create a corporation that could present itself to those big processors, and that will create market, will create contract, and will create more income for those people who are working in cocoa sector.
Fantastic. I guess that is a good transition to my next question related to the smallholder farmers, in which what kind of impact can we expect at that level? Usually, smaller farmers on the continent are facing challenges when it comes to market access, inputs, agro-husbandry, and finance, and so on and so forth. How do you think smaller farmers within the cocoa sector are affected by these different elements? I can repeat them: market access, inputs, agro-husbandry, and financing. Over to you.
Yes, of course. All what you have said is true. This is a real situation. Smallholders mainly are facing many problems. I can't say that all producers in Africa or in the world are having the same problem, because there is huge companies in Africa which are producing the same product, same raw material, which are making good business and can have access to market worldwide. But those small ones we are talking about now are on the back end, and are on the back end of the environment of cocoa sector, and they can't afford. They can't afford because of lack of uh, legal papers first, because more and more are working in informal way, so they can't have access to bank credits because they're not recognized. They can't have access to, they can't rent even a place on a port when it comes to exports. So it's like they don't have a good face to be presented. They don't have a good face to be presented on a professional market. So I think the way the big and the huge problem is not the lack of uh, professionalism in terms of agricultural practices. It's not the lack of um, ads or advertising on the face of those big companies, but the huge and the only one, the real one problem they are actually facing in this one I'm talking about is the lack of organization. Why they are not organized? Because of also government policies. So there is many. It's a very complex situation, very complex situation, and the only way, the only one way to fight this complex situation is to start by the base, to forget all what you were talking about, even if it's real, but starting by the first one, to organize those smallholder farmers. Because here, the issue is not the quality. Here, the issue is the strength, which they haven't.
Then my question to you, based on that, some of the issues can be fixed by the private sector, right? When it comes to market access, when it comes to inputs, a little bit in terms of extension services, especially now feeding into aggregators like your company and allowing them to have bigger volumes to be traded. Happy to hear from you. What kind of support are you providing to the smallholder farmers in order for them to increase their production, increase the yield?
Yeah, yes, I get you. Well, what we are giving as value added to farmers before they harvest, we are teaching them good agricultural practices. It's complex also, this domain of good agricultural practices. We are sending agronomists in order to teach them how to practice, how to do good in this, to do things in the good way. Not only that, we are organizing them in institutions, but because for us, farmers should consider their farm like company, like business, and that's why we are training them in order to consider and to take it on the market, to have a go-to-market plan as a business, not as just someone who is growing crops and who would like to make some few money on this. No, we group them in a huge group of 20 or 40%. We bring them in some training. We make a legal form for the cooperatives, which can be presentable in each instance. And then after that, they have good agricultural practices. They are legal recognized. so they can go to market and make business. This is what we are doing for agriculture cooperative actually. With main target as small farmers.
So fantastic for that. Currently, in your operation, what is the volume of cocoa you are currently trading? And what is basically your objective in terms of increase of that volume? And what would you need in terms of support to be able to trade more of those cocoa, and also by doing so, supporting the smaller farmers to increase their access to markets through your company? Over to you.
Before responding to this question, let's talk about coffee and the great example of coffee. And here I'm taking Congo, Burundi, and Rwanda as main examples. How this coffee has become the best one in the world, how this coffee has found a way actually to be sold everywhere in the world. Because as for cocoa, we should have this. We should push everyone to support this one, this cocoa of Central Africa or West Africa. Not only those big companies that we know would have their own means of transporting, because the main problem actually with more than 100 tons a year of cocoa by cooperatives, small farmers can't. They are not able to bring it to the market out of Africa, because the huge part of cocoa is processed out of Africa, so they don't have means to bring this coffee out of Africa. And this is a huge problem. They have quality, they have quantity, but they can't move it. And this is a huge problem, very huge problem. If the world can put their ears on this part of agriculture sector, I think things can change.
All right. So let me go back to the question that I requested. So in terms of the volume you're currently trading in terms of cocoa, at which level are you? And what is your objective in terms of growth? And what kind of support are you expecting, and especially from home? Over to you.
Okay. Actually, the support that we are waiting and we think we can get from outside or from private sector is not in terms of money support, is not in terms of good agricultural practices, it's in terms of they have to help those small farmers to open the market for everyone, which is not effective actually.
Yes, a little bit of understanding when it comes to probably to fill the gap when it comes to the cocoa. The challenge on the continent is pretty much huge, because the cocoa market is estimated at 100 billion USD worldwide. And knowing that Africa, especially through Cote d'Ivoire, yes, Angelo, we've lost you for a second. So I was giving a little bit of perspective when it comes to the cocoa industry. So that's now the attendees can have an understanding of what you're talking about.
Okay.
So the global market is around 100 billion USD. And when it comes to Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana, those are the two largest producers of cocoa worldwide, and estimated between 60 to 70% of the global production. And unfortunately, they can only lend home $7 billion. So as you can all see, there's tremendous room for growth. And especially if we decide starting processing the cocoa on the continent, so that we can capture the value addition and being able to trade the different product or sub-products of cocoa, being the cocoa powder, the cocoa liquor, and also the cocoa butter, which some of them lead to some of the specialties products, not only the chocolate we do eat, but some product which are also used in the cosmetics industries. and so on and so forth.